Hello, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Radically Loved Radio. I am joined by a very special guest today. He is, to say, he's a friend of mine. He is an author. He is a heart-centered, loving, authentic, genuine human being. He is all things that are soulful in the world. Shannon Algeo. I literally should have thought of that before I started to say, but I'm like, how? I don't even know how to. If there was a person who embodied heart centered living, it would be this person. So thank you so much for being here, Shannon. I
Oh,
love you.
thank you, Rosie. I'm glad you didn't plan that and you just kind of let it like flow out like a prayer.
Yeah, I was just like, this is who this man is. I mean, you
Wow.
are just, I don't, it's so weird because I feel like we definitely have that relationship where maybe we don't see each other all the time or talk all the time, but when we do, it's like, just like putting on an old shoe.
Oh, yeah. So comfortable. And like, oh, yeah, this shoe, like, this is my favorite thing to
Yeah.
walk with and around.
Or a cozy teddy bear. Maybe
Or a
that's
hot
better.
matcha,
Yes, this
which
is
I
true.
have to ask you offline about your favorite matcha
Oh, don't
because,
worry. I'm going to hook you up.
okay.
Matcha full. And I think they're from New York,
Okay,
your
because
old hangs.
I got into this habit of drinking matcha again instead of coffee, and I'm sure all your listeners like might be relevant. But so I'm spending like $7 to $8 a day on my morning walk to the matcha, which is like
Yes.
fine, but I'm like I don't want to do the paper cup and like have to
Oh, yeah.
go and
No.
like, it's time to make it at home.
Yeah, I will definitely walk you through it. It's so much more. To me, it's just the ritual of having that morning. I make my own cashew milk. Like I
Mhm.
get up in the morning, I heat my hot water kettle to 180 degrees because that's what you need to use to make matcha. And then you whisk your matcha and you put your milk in there and then you just sit and you do your little matcha ceremony. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh, that's
Yes.
such a
Do you
vibe.
know do you know Candace Kumai?
I know her through you and maybe Sahara.
Yes.
Like she has a book, right? About
Yeah,
like a
she's got
cookbook.
several books. She's
Okay,
got
okay.
she's got a handful of books and yeah, she's actually the person who taught me how to do like a proper Japanese matcha ceremony, which is not I don't do it every morning, but
Mm.
I use the elements of what she taught me to do it every morning and I love it. So yeah, I will definitely tell you about this. See what happens? We're recording a podcast and now we're just having a chat. Okay. So
This is a
let's
podcast about matcha.
I know. Let me lead by saying this. Uh, you're an author now. Like you are an author, and that is something so incredible. I obviously knew when you started your writing process. The name of your book is called Trust Your Truth, Heal Self Doubt, Awaken to Your Soul's Purpose, and Live Your Badass Life.
Oh my gosh,
And
there it
uh,
is.
oh, saying it all. Did I say that
Y-
right?
Yeah, you got it
Oh,
right.
good.
And I see
Okay.
like a picture of it popping up somewhere on the screen.
Oh, yes. There. Thank you. That's what happens when we're at Mod Pod Studio. They really make it, they go the distance.
For real. I'm like, oh my gosh, it's there. Yeah, you nailed it. That's exactly right.
Well, and we have Mod Pod on that note, just one other little side note. We've come a long way from recording in my living room on the couch, asking Tori what buttons to push.
And that was the last time I was on Radically Loved Radio at the
That's
time.
true.
Um,
How long ago was that?
that was maybe 2017.
Wow. So 4 years ago? What?
Yeah, like 3, 4 years ago. And we're on your couch and we're like setting up our own headphones and we're
Oh,
asking Tori what button
yes.
to push. And
Yes. Hot
and
mess.
now we've got Mod Pod.
Now we've got Mod Pod. We've got the whole team here. JD and Ed are incredible. There are others on the team as well, and it's been such an incredible joy to work with everybody here. I just it's one of those things. Once you're working with a proper production company that you're like, man, I wish I would have this. I wish I would have had this sooner. But you know what? I'm so grateful that we have it now, and here we are. Even though we're apart, we're still together, and it's great.
We've got Matcha, we've got Mod Pod. Do we have any other M's we need to celebrate?
I think no. I think that's it for now.
My love for Rosie. There we go.
Oh my goodness. You're amazing. So, wow, Shannon, when I was reading what do I have, like a proof, I guess? Is it
Yeah, you've got
it's
like
an
an
advanced
early.
copy,
Hmm.
like super early. I the minute I started the intro, I was shook. I was like, wow, this is so honest and true and deep. And I've definitely learned about a part of you that I didn't know, I don't see, obviously. And I'm excited to chat with you about it because I feel like, everything that the book is about, about healing, it's about awakening to your purpose, to your dharma. It's about um one of the biggest takeaways that I got from it is this whole idea of forgiveness. I mean, I just kept going back to this, like, forgiveness sense of myself, like
Mm,
really allowing myself the space to, yeah, feel into what my truth is and whatever the things are that are holding me back from living my purpose. And it's an interesting thing, and I'll say to you the same thing that I told Sahara, whenever I have friends that write books, it's like when we're in the same space, I go into this definitely egocentric place where I'm like, I already know everything. Like I know all these things,
yeah,
And
totally.
I'm like, oh, this is okay, I already know this. Yeah, I already know. Okay, yeah, root chakra, like I know this. But but it's such a beautiful thing for me to experience the newness of not knowing something or
Mm,
of being
mm.
open to experiencing something new. Like in the chapter 4, you're talking about the heart chakra, and you're talking, well, first of all, you're going into the you talk about the heart and the lungs cuddling with each other. You say something of that nature where they're just basically in the cavern of our ribs, of our chest, and they're two buddies hugging each other. And I
Cuddle
thought,
buddies for life.
cuddle buddies, yes. And I thought that was so cute, And as I went on and just hearing your voice again, things that I already know to be true, but just in a whole different context. So I'll go back to what I was saying before, thinking about, yeah, these are ideas and beliefs that I know. I know about emotions, I know about shame, I know about being able to open yourself to your highest. But it's so interesting when it's put in another person's words, how you can then reflect into that. I mean, you share
Mm.
some really great stories about just your own personal journey. So I know I'm going on and on. I definitely want you I definitely want you to tell us about it. But one thing, what I wanted to say is that I am just so grateful for you and for your honesty and your ability to really just, even being a leader in this space of spirituality and wellness, you really allow yourself to be vulnerable and honest. And I feel like it gives other people in that space the ability to do the same. So
Mm.
thank you for that.
Thank you so much. Thank you for seeing that. You're bringing up something that's reminding me of back when I first started writing the book. I I struggled at first because I had already done the proposal. I'd already like worked with the agent. I'd already gotten the book deal. The chapter outline was there. What I wanted to do was there. But then when I don't know if everyone has this experience, but when I went to write it, I had this reckoning moment of like, okay, what is this book going to be? Because now
Mm,
now it's not a proposal. It's time to write. And when I first started writing, I wanted to write a book based on Shannon now. Like I'm last year I was 33, now I'm 34, and I wanted to. I didn't want to go back and talk about some of the stuff that I was learning in the last decade of my life. And my publishing company was like, "We want you to write this book for someone who's not already on their spiritual path necessarily." But is open to it, is like seeking a deeper connection to these truths, but isn't already indoctrinated necessarily. Or think of yourself before you knew all of this. Like, what did you
mhm.
need to hear? And so my hope for the book, of course, is that it's, poignant for not just newbies to the spiritual path, but I think it does provide insights for people who are working through stuff now, and have been for a while. But I wanted to weave in personal stories because I this is just like my teaching style thing. I think it's so it disgusts me when I see teachers who are on a pedestal and who are kind of enjoying
Yeah.
the pedestal of like, I've got it figured out, and let me like bestow upon you, my followers, the truth that you need to come and suck from the teat of my udder. Like, and I can't stand that style of teaching. It like, when I see it in people, I like
Yeah.
immediately turn to another teacher. I turn the other way. And so I wanted to demonstrate through the stories that I share in the book that like I don't have it all figured out. I am in a process of learning just like the reader. And if I can wrestle with some of these like tough life lessons that have pointed me on my path towards truth, then hopefully the reader has the experience of like, well, then I can too.
I definitely agree with you 100%, and I do appreciate that. I mean, you really start off strong at the beginning in the introduction. You're basically talking about shattering your bathroom or your shower door, and the sort of processes of what is happening. It's like, oh, because my friend can't. This is I'm angry. It's because I didn't do this, and because my friend did this, and you're going through this process. And I feel like throughout the whole book, that's sort of this theme, right? Where you're like, okay, this is my sort of reaction to what is happening, and this is where I can see it from an elevated perspective, and not necessarily you're saying, oh, I'm in an elevated perspective, but you're definitely inviting the reader to observe things differently. So, for the people that are like, what is she talking about? Can you share that story? And just, it's in the beginning, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I wanted to start the book off with a bang because I wanted to like I wanted my hope is that this book lands in someone's hands when they are just sick of their old fucking shit, and they just are ready for a new perspective. They're ready to look at their life more symbolically. They're ready to reckon with the lessons and are tired of the same pattern repeating itself. So a lot of the stories I share, like that one at the beginning, are these like repeated patterns, and that repeated pattern for me was multiple things at once, which is part of what made it so intense. One of the things was my repression and suppression. Repression being an unconscious shoveling away of emotion, and suppression being a conscious choice to push it down. But I had repression and suppression of rage, and that rage was triggered by a friend of mine who was supposed to pick me up in her like fancy new car in LA. And we are going to drive to Sage, a vegan restaurant in Culver City, and go out for this like amazing birthday dinner. And I had just come out of this like really intense 3-hour Reiki session. And I was really dealing with some like mom and dad, like deep family stuff for like 3 hours on my birthday, of course, like in Santa Monica. It's like when that 1 hour Reiki session is like goes from like 1 to 4, and you're like,
Yeah.
what just happened?
Yes.
So I get home, and or as soon as I walk out of the Reiki session, I have a text from this friend, and it says that she's canceling our dinner plans. And I am instantly like triggered and wounded, and I'm angry. I'm like, how dare she back out on me, and doesn't she know that this is my birthday? And I instantly become a child, and she
Mm,
is my mother, and she is withdrawing when I have needs, and I am reacting as if her canceling is connected to my sense of self-worth. If she really cared about me, she would come. If she really loved me, she would overcome whatever she's going through, and she would just show up and pick me up. It was bringing up all this stuff. And so I'm home, and I'm getting home, I'm unlocking the door to my house, and I'm just kind of in this fit of triggered rage. But I'm trying not to text her and have my thumbs attack her. So I'm dealing with this. I don't want to harm her, but keeping it in is feeling like it's harming me. And so I'm like, well, fuck it. I'm going to take Epsom salt bath with all the essential oils that I have just like
Uh-huh.
stocked up in my house. And so as I'm going to get in the bath, the candle's lit, the lights are off, the Epsom salts are poured, the glass door gets stuck. There's a sliding glass door. And I'm just like, oh, like what? Of course, like what is happening? Of course, this door gets stuck. This door never gets stuck. What's happening? And so I go to handle it, and I go to move it, and I'm not trying to break it, but my rage is in my body, and my cells are vibrating with this wound, and the door bends in just a way as I'm trying to kind of hoist it up where it's stuck, and it shatters all over me as I'm standing in the bath. And these little shards of glass go down my body, down my legs. And I just look down, and there's like streams of blood pooling into the tub. And I'm like, happy birthday to me.
Wow.
Happy birthday to me. And I instantly am like, I instantly am like, okay, Shannon, like this is your birthday. A glass shower door just shattered on you. There's like something that you need to look at here. But first I had to crawl from, or not crawl, but tiptoe from the tub to the door, and there's like glass all over the floor. So I'm like walking on glass to get out naked and like to call my friend. And that had been a repeated pattern for me. And this is the point that I want to lift up, is this wound of me. My friend was in a deep depression that month, and she had to cancel because she couldn't possibly go sit at a restaurant. She was too low. She was taking care of herself. But I had a pattern of making people's emotions and I had a pattern of making someone else's stuff about me,
Mm.
instead of having that healthy barrier, that healthy kind of individual filter of that's her stuff and this is my stuff. And just because she withdraws on my birthday doesn't mean anything about my worth. It doesn't mean anything about how much she loves me. It doesn't mean anything about my capacity to love myself. And so by me looking at that glass shattering on my birthday as a wake up call, as an energetic kind of manifestation of this inner pattern, I was able to see it differently and say, okay, Shannon, like this rage in you, this wound that becomes so intense, I'm going to have to learn how to work with this and finally give up the codependency that continues to harm myself and others in subtle and not so subtle ways in my relationships.
Wow. Oh, that's so good. Well, that is such a huge thing to come to realize. I mean, it's not easy to even admit for a lot of people.
No, it's such a delicate dance too, because like I don't want people to walk away being like, oh, like everything that happens to me means that it's my responsibility. And one of, like I caused this shower door to break. I caused this
Right, right.
tornado to blow down my house. I caused the fires, and it's not that. But if there's a repeated inner pattern, like the glass shattering is kind of irrelevant, but that's just what I needed to say, like, wake up,
Right.
Shannon. And that's what I want to invite people on in the book, is like, the truth, the nature of truth, and connecting to the truth within us.
Yeah.
It like it's it speaks to us in whispers in our meditation practice.
Yeah.
It speaks to us, but we don't tend to listen to it. And so then it starts to knock, and it starts to, like, things in life happen like, hey, can you deal with this? Can you like maybe face this thing that you're ignoring? And then, we can be really good at ignoring that and shoveling that away. And then the breakup happens. We realize the boyfriend or girlfriend is cheating. The glass shower door breaks. So the journey is like, how do we listen to these communications from the universe or our unconscious mind or God, goddess, the divine, whatever our relationship is to that higher power? It really is in communication with us.
Yeah. Oh, that's so true, and it's so good, and I think it's really a matter of being awake to that, being open to seeing those signs subtly or not, sometimes not so subtly. What was your what if there was a chapter, like I know for me what my process was in writing, and because you share so much of your own personal journey in here, like, was there a chapter that was harder to write than others, or did it pretty much go streamline? What was the biggest obstacle did you encounter?
Yeah, that is such a great question. The book was actually, and I know this is not everyone's experience. It was easy to write. It was harder to edit and hand over the final. And is that landing for you?
Yeah, that's connecting. That's connecting.
hmm
Mhm. Mhm.
I want to hear more about that either online or offline. And the hardest part for me was a story that I share about my dad, and my mom, because I speak to the second chakra, which is the second chapter, find your own flow. Because the goal is to connect to your truth on each of the energetic centers of the body and each of the chakras, so to find your truth on all levels of your body and being. And so the second chakra chapter is about creativity, sexuality, and the dynamics of like key relationship lessons, which often have to do, not always, but involve mom and dad. And they certainly did for me. And so naming how my mom and dad's relationship and their toxic passive aggressive relationship that they had when I was growing up, and how I learned to be a shapeshifter and a mediator, because my dad would offload some stuff while he was drinking a martini, on the couch watching a ball game. He would offload, oh, your mother this, your mother that, and then my mom would say, tell your father. And so I felt so powerful because I was like, I know the thing that they can't know about each other. They can't communicate. They can't commune around this missing link, but they put it onto me, which is, that's the fucked up thing that I've had to reckon with. And so saying that and naming how that impacted me really brought up all the codependency that is that pattern, like, that's the codependent pattern that I have, but it brought it to a head thinking about my dad reading that chapter. And i
Mm.
and I was like, I could imagine how he would feel reading it, and I wanted to change the book to cater to how he would feel. And I had to really
Ugh.
ground into, no, I have to write this, and he has to deal with his feelings, whatever those may be. So weirdly, like, the codependent pattern that was that childhood wound came up through the process of talking about it in the book.
Yeah. Oh, that is deep. That is so deep. So are you
Yeah.
thinking about that as you're writing it? Like, okay, did you know that you were doing that as you were writing it?
I because the book writing process is like so many years, as you know,
Yeah.
like, this has almost been 3 years since I started working on the proposal. Back when I was writing the book, I was just like into Penga, going on my morning hike, turning off my phone. I was like, girl, you can write whatever you want. Like, and I felt safe because I knew no one was going to be reading it.
Yeah.
Well, that's kind of, no one was going to be reading it for a long time. So I had this
Right.
kind of like, oh, I'll deal with that later. Or who knows if it'll make it in the book. Like, it might get cut.
Totally.
So actually, I had a really profound experience happen when I was getting ready to submit the final manuscript. All of this anxiety was coming to a head because I had to have a conversation with my dad about it, because I felt responsible to communicate to him at least what was in the book before hitting publish. Um, and so it was like navigating, okay, I need to have that conversation with him, but it's not so that I can get his approval and maybe change it. It's just simply to communicate, like, this is something that's happening in the book. And I had a dream, and my grandfather came to me in a dream. And I say this with confidence because I've never had a dream before that felt like a visitation like this.
Mhm.
And something I talk about later in the book is rage, well, I talk about rage again later in the book. And my grandfather, my dad's dad, immigrated from Ireland, Daniel Algeo, and he and all of my dad's siblings, my dad was the youngest. They all got the belt.
Mm,
So he was physically abusive, and but my dad didn't. But he still grew up in this home with this like kind of toxic male rage.
yeah.
And my grandfather, one of the things I was working with is this rage in me. Is that like my grandfather had this rage and my dad had this impatience that never was physical, but it was intense, and it was toxic in its own way, and I've experienced that within myself.
Mm,
And with my puppy Ginger, that came up when
yeah.
I stepped into the role of father.
Yeah.
And so one of the things that, or what happened in this dream was my grandfather said to me, he was in kind of a delusional state, and we were in a hospital room, and he was pacing the room in this delusional state, and suddenly his eyes like got really clear, and he had like a burst of clarity, and he sat down in a hospital chair in the room, and he looked at me, and I looked into his like pure Irish face, like rosy cheeks and his clear eyes, and he just said to me, "I'm so sorry. I was so terrible. I'm so sorry." And it was like this, it wasn't like a shame filled I was so terrible, it was like this relief of this unburdening and this like clear seeing. And in that moment, in that dream, and it's important that this was happening right around the time I was dealing with all of this anxiety about publishing this part of the book, that I was reminded of the bigger picture of this thing that I'm healing within myself is going to ripple not just into future generations and the people around me, but it's also going to ripple back and affect my dad somehow,
Mm.
and possibly and definitely even affect my grandfather and his ability to be liberated from his past karma.
Oh, that is deep. That is so deep. Wow. I love that so much. I'm like, "Ugh, tell me more." I think it's so interesting too that uh we allow ourselves to sometimes feel lost in those moments when so many of the answers to guide us back to what we need to be doing are in front of us. I'm just going to echo back what you said earlier about the knock and just kind of life being in front of you saying, "Hey, pay attention to me," or listen to this, or pay attention to your dreams, or watch. I'm it's sort of like I go into this sometimes cognitive dissonance with things like that, because I am a very open to the signs and the email or the dragonfly that flew right across from me. But at the same time, I'm like, okay, but I got to be realistic right now and just I mean, it could mean absolutely nothing, right? So it just really depends on what kind of mood I'm in, I guess. But when these signs come in, I think they're really poignant. And if they can set you on the direction, or at least create a level of um, embracing what is in that moment, I mean, that is such a powerful healing moment for you to have that vision and even to have that experience, because even though it was in your dream, you're still emotionally feeling the release of uh that asking for forgiveness, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And that's the what Carl Jung calls the compensatory nature of the unconscious mind. And to me, what I'm learning is that the unconscious mind and the universe are the same. And so I don't, it's the universe speaking to me, and it's also my unconscious mind. It's the psyche. It's both my individual psyche, but it's also how my psyche is plugging into the collective. So when we
Right.
see these signs and synchronicities and moments, it's it's just kind of humbling to remember, well, I don't know what the f is going on. The majority I don't know. So when these little things percolate, like what I didn't write in the book and what I haven't told you, Rosie, is that glass shattered on my birthday the year before. Also, it
Wow.
it was just a coffee pot. The next year it was a whole door. So the synchronicity of
That's
glass
wild.
on birthday is like, my ears perk up. Time to
Uh,
listen.
and I love that you looked it up too and you were so irritated.
I was like, what the fuck does this mean? Like, tell me now. Just like rage,
Yes.
being a student while enraged is kind of hysterical.
Yeah, I love it. To me, it's like the human experience. It doesn't matter how many tools I have. I know this is going to sound a little bit weird, but I love having meltdowns. Like it's literally my favorite thing whenever I have
Mm.
an epic meltdown or I get really just swept away by my emotions or I get really angry or I throw a fit and it's just like, okay, really? Like really? Is that what you're doing right now? But it's hilarious. I often find it comical, so long as, obviously I'm not doing anything that's causing harm to to anybody else. Most of the harm is just you know, to my relationship. No, I'm just kidding. That's
I have a
fucked up.
question for you though. How do you go from, like, what's your transition like when you go from the fit of fury, or when you're acting like a child, or you're,
Yeah.
like you're enraged, to seeing it as hilarious? Like, do you just like, does it happen quickly, like where you catch yourself and it becomes funny, or is it like later it's funny?
I think now it happens very quickly
Mm,
because I unfortunately or fortunately am with a partner whom you know very well, and people here know him as well. But like we've been together for 18 years, so when I'm typically throwing a tantrum like that, it's most often because of something that's happening in my personal life, and he's the best reflection I have to just I can tell by a reaction, even though it might irritate me, um, that desire to perpetuate the intensity of that feeling, which is what we do. When we are emotional beings, I consider myself a very passionate being. And so I feel like when I get to that tantrum state, I want to perpetuate it. I want the mind is going to is reacting to the physical reaction. It's saying, "Oh, I'm angry. Okay, let's go into the file cabinet of the mind and find more things that are like this
mm,
so we can continue to perpetuate that feeling." And so I think sometimes I just don't engage in it. And so then I often just find it comical because I'm like, I don't feel bad. I'm fine. Everything's fine. Like it's not that serious. And then I'll smile or I'll do something like silly. I might flip Tori off. And then that just brings me to this place of being a child. And I'm like, okay, I'm being, being a child. And
yeah.
then I can laugh and he can laugh. And then we can just move on from that. I think it's definitely more
Mm,
insidious when it comes to reactions to my family and things with my family because of the deep which you've talked about. Like it's sort of those that conditioning that we have from childhood. So me letting go of things that my family might do to irritate the shit out of me is going to be a lot harder for me to let go of rather than I'm just having a fit in that moment and then I can just let it go, you
mm,
know?
mm. I love that, because it just shows so much growth and emotional intelligence in your ability to like watch yourself wanting like more, like to express the anger even
Yes.
more,
Oh,
but
I
then
love it.
there's a moment of grace where you just like flick them off, like, or you
Yeah.
find playfulness, and it sets you free from it. It's so great that that's
Yeah.
possible.
I mean, I'm grateful that I have a person in my life that doesn't engage,
Mm,
that doesn't entertain it. He will occasionally if he's feeling some type of way, but it's very few and far between. And I think we just know each other well enough to know when either we need space, we need to go outside, or we just we can acknowledge that we're wrong or we can agree to disagree,
mm.
which often, sometimes it's not satisfactory to agree to disagree because somebody always wants to be right.
Right. Like, I disagree that we should agree to disagree.
Yeah, yeah. No, totally. I
I love
remember. Oh, go ahead.
No, 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 you.
Well, no, I was thinking about, something that you said to me years ago. Back then, you were in a romantic relationship, and we would talk about the things that we do when we argue with our mate. And
Mm,
one of the things that you had said that I still say today, and I don't even know if you know
wow.
this, but you would stop yourself from the argument, or you would get yourself into this place where you say, I bow to you, my humble teacher, or you
Mm,
acknowledge this. And in a way, it's kind of a little bit condescending. It feels a little bit like, I bow to you, my humble teacher. But we've taken that in a sense, and so I can really get into that place where I can just let go and just say, okay, thank you for teaching me, like, thank you for
mm,
teaching me
mm.
this lesson. And he can take it as a jab, and maybe in the moment I do mean it as a jab, but it often returns. It's the power of words, right? It's like that
Mm.
power of the words. I actually do learn something, and I do accept the fact that the relationships in our lives are there to be teachers. So for the people that are watching this or listening to this and have no idea what I'm talking about, do you want to elaborate a little bit?
Yeah, well, you talking about how Tori doesn't engage and how that's a gift, or maybe he engages sometimes, but generally, like, he doesn't intensify the fire when you're
Right.
experiencing it, reminds me of what Ginger taught me.
Yeah.
And Ginger was my puppy, and I adopted her and I rehomed her, and I what came up for me in my relationship with Ginger was I was out of that relationship that you just referenced. I was newly single, still new to LA, living alone for the first time, getting my bearings both with my career and city and all the things. And I adopted this puppy in a like kind of childlike whim of like, I want a puppy. And I realized that, well, what was happening is I would get so angry at her when she would like pee on the floor or vomit on the couch or chew my coffee table book. And sometimes I would get so mad that she would like cower in the corner, like shaking. And I would like be looking at her, looking up at me. And saw her afraid of me, and I was afraid of myself. And she was this like perfect mirror for Shannon. This is your problem, dude, because she wasn't going to fight me back. She loved me unconditionally. And I was like, how am I being so terrible to this innocent puppy? Versus with my ex, it was easier to be mad at him because he cheated on me and he did all these things that made me feel justified in my rage.
Mhm, mhm.
And so, yeah, like you said, these relationships, all like, especially our meaningful, our deep, our intimate relationships, are mirrors and teachers. And some relationships, like my relationship with my ex, needed to end, needed to move on. And I ultimately did decide to rehome Ginger, not because I was avoiding this stuff coming up in me. And I wanted to get really clear that I wasn't just kind of like running. Uh, but what I learned is that part of my rage was that I was so jealous of how good I was taking care of her, and my inner child and my wounded self was longing for that level of care for myself, and I needed to learn how to take care of Shannon.
Mm.
And I couldn't get it from a parent, I couldn't get it from an ex, I couldn't get it from a number in my bank account, and I couldn't get it from a puppy, because this quality of care required that I grow up and be an adult and learn to, like, you referenced how you kind of caretake your inner child is by, like, letting her have her tantrum or letting her change her mind and giggle. So it's like, how can we be in relationship with our emotions? And I use rage in the book because rage to me is like New York City. If you can make it here, you can make it
Yeah.
anywhere. How can I exhaust this intense emotion without harming myself or others?
Yeah.
And that's my practice now, is like, and that's what I love about what you said, is you don't feel shame about your tantrums. And that is the key. I used to feel shame about my anger, so I would suppress it, which guaranteed that it would come out stronger later.
Right.
And so me like furiously journaling, or if I need to, I will take a pillow and I will beat this couch because I wouldn't let myself do that before because I judged my rage. But now I'm like, girl, that's a couch and this is a pillow. Go to town.
I will beat you. I will beat you. You hear me?
This is why we buy sturdy couches from Scandinavian Designs.
Oh, that is so good, Shannon. I love you, and I am so excited that you created this just collection of wisdom and heart-centered truth and processes to get us to this place to really understanding who we are and to get to know what our highest truths are. So thank you so much for creating this. Trust your truth, everybody. It's out now. Before I let Shannon go, I do want to just take a moment to say that it's hard. I don't like to ever say I'm proud of people because I feel like there's a little bit of like, oh, I'm so proud of you. I'm proud to know you.
Mm.
I'm just so excited for the world to get their hands on this book, and I'm honored and privileged to be in your community, to be your friend, and to have known you for as long as I have. And I'm so yeah, I'm so excited, and I'm so grateful, and I can't wait to hear what people think of this book. So is there anything else that you would like to share with the audience today?
Yes, Rosie, there is. I just want to say thank you. Thank you for you impress me the way you continually show up for for your community and for people around you, and you continue to create and connect. I'm so grateful that you were just like, yes, let's do another podcast together, and like to have me here just makes me feel so honored and humbled and grateful. And thank you for using your voice to teach. You're such a teacher, and really feel connected to you in the way that we're able to like share authentically about real shit and just like go there together. And so I hope this conversation is meaningful to people who want to hear some real talk. And I love you and thank you for having me.
Oh, you're the best. So where can people go for more information or to connect with you?
Yeah, so the book is available at trustyourtruthbook.com. There's a bunch of outlets if people want to buy from independent bookshops. You can do that on there. You can get the book in almost any country. It's also on Amazon and Target and Barnes and Noble. And yeah, trustyourtruthbook.com. And I'll also be posting lots of like little pieces from the book on my Instagram, Shannon.algeo, and my website, shannonalgeo.com.
Perfect. So, those of
Yeah.
you watching this or listening, if you go to the info button of this particular podcast, you will find all of those links there. Also, where you can follow Shannon. If you're watching the video, you can go to the description and get
Description.
get all of those links there. So before I let you go, and I'm so curious to see if your answer is different from the first time I asked you, the final question. Obviously, you know that I created this space because I believe that we are radically loved by God, source, universe, whatever higher power of your understanding, that the universe works for us and not against us. And so the final question to you is, how do you feel radically loved?
Mm. I feel radically loved when I allow myself to be myself. And sometimes it feels like you gotta like I think of just like jumping in the ocean or like jumping in the deep end. Like there's that moment of decision, like, am I gonna hide behind this shell or am I just gonna say fuck it and jump in? And I don't think I can be radically loved unless I just like take off my armor and just jump in and be myself, get naked vulnerably and emotionally and sometimes physically.
I love you so much, Shannon. Thank you so much. You're the best. And
I
thank you,
love
everybody.
you.
Thanks for listening. And thank you again for being here, Shannon. We
Thank you
love
so
you
much.
all. Share this with all of your friends. And don't forget to subscribe. I don't know what is going on with me today. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you guys. See you guys next week. Hey everyone, I hope you enjoyed this episode. I am so excited to continue to do this. Please share this with your friends. Email us, message us on Instagram at Rosie Acosta or on Twitter at Rosie Acosta. Subscribe on iTunes, write a review. We love doing this, so please help us continue to keep this podcast going. Thanks for listening.